right, Linda Stevens, I'm so proud to have you on the Geospatial Index. I really feel like we've hit the big time. You are the, I guess, founder and CEO of the fantastically named Spatial Spirits Consultancy.
I do like the name.
I should also say you are a former Esri executive and chief marketing officer. So clearly you have a huge amount to contribute, and yeah, it's a massive privilege.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
All right. So usually in the preparation, I try to show how diligent I am in preparing for these episodes. We're coming up with a 10-point agenda, and I'm very systematic. But in this case, I feel that I have been conscientious and diligent. I've read a book, for example, in preparing for this episode. I've also read, I think, actually 2 of your blogs, including one from a couple of years ago, which had a number of interesting posts. But the result here is actually only 2 agenda items. But they're both general topics that I really, and all of us would really love to hear you speak at length to. So the first one is about marketing. And yeah, I'll just start off by commenting that in a previous interview on Pathfinders, you mentioned that Esri dominates, not due to technical prowess, but due to marketing. You also observe that there's a lack of competition in the geospatial industry, noting stagnant products. So then, as the former CMO, please walk us through the playbook used at Esri to achieve dominance through marketing. The industry as a whole can leverage this to, as you say in your Spatial Spirits Consultancy webpage, secure investor funding, revitalize organizational branding, drive sales growth, and foster collaboration. We're all ears.
Great. Well, that's a big topic, so I'll go through some highlights. But I will start by saying, when I started at Esri in 1986. So for many of you, that's like pre-internet, pre-technology, pre a lot of things. So
that's when I was 3.
Yeah. So you were. So yes. Yeah, I wasn't that much older than you. No, but I was right out of college. I went home. I grew up in Redlands. So Redlands is my hometown. I went home to do, to save some money. I was in grad school at UCLA in geography. And my professor there had told me that there's a company there that has doing some automated mapping, right? Automated cartography. And there wasn't GIS back then. So anyway, I got a summer job digitizing. And then I stayed. So I'll start by saying, when I started, it was like less than 100 people, and we were mainly a services organization, Esri still is a services organization, and at least half of their money, maybe more now. And so we were shifting to be a product company at that time, and that's another area I can help people with, because that's important. You handle that well. And so we were doing that, and I think that one of the things we did is we completely marketed the product. The services kind of was behind the scenes, because it's important that how you position yourself, right? So what we ended up doing is we created everything ourselves. We didn't follow the Silicon Valley playbook for marketing, the .com boom and kind of eyeballs. I remember it made no sense to me. So we were in it for the long term, right? So I'm going to be talking about a company that might be interested in a long-term growth and long-term stability, not somebody who's trying to sell their company to VCs.
Oh, no. Next week. We all want to learn, the playbook for industry dominance. So
industry dominance. So how that works is you have to figure out what your messaging is and what you're marketing, right? So when I started there, geography was on the downswing. Technology was on an upswing, but everybody was using CAD for making maps, right? So we had to do a few things. One is I needed to market geography as not an old dying thing. And you can see that still in Esri today, like geography matters, right? Where it's always about that. So we know one of the things is how do we modernize geography? Well, we started to reach out to National Geographic and form that relationship. That's a long-term relationship. And then we had to say, okay, the tool that you need to use in modern geography is GIS. Oh, what's GIS? Okay, we had to market and create that industry, right? So we started to build material for it. We started to write curriculum around it. We started to get universities to start teaching it. That was huge in the early days, right? We got this guy named Roger Tomlinson from Canada who's just doing whatever he's doing and made him an icon, right? We literally like, okay, we're going to write your book for you. We're going to put you on stage. We're going to make you wear this, we created, it's all of that was created, right? So you think about your brand, right? And then the technology's somewhere, and then at the end, you're like, okay, and we have the best GIS, right? And this is why, because we can do these things, right? And then you go out but you have to be thoughtful about it. You have to think about it, right? You can't just jump into something and say, hey, buy my product when the folks don't really even understand what it is and why it's better and how they could use it. So it was so we were in it for the long term. We also were very much about celebrating our users, right? We knew that, at least in the marketing side, and Jack, the CEO, we knew that the users were who was going to make us successful. They're our shareholders, right? So how do we make them successful? So half of my time and my group's time and my budget was spent on keeping users informed, up to date, knowledgeable, giving them what they need. Like I had a whole, my education team was building curriculum. You're like, why is that in marketing? Well, because marketing is about educating people. It's not about fooling people. It's not about tricking them. It's about educating them. So we were in it for the long term. The second thing I think that was critical is I had a seat at the table, right? I knew, so you can't market a product if you have never used it. You can't market a product if you don't know it. So I was a programmer. I was a geographer. I used the tool more than, I flew around the world for, 10 years, benchmarking and building on it. I knew it. I knew what was good and not good with it. So you have to have that knowledge. And I had a seat at the table. And one of the most crucial relationships is between marketing and development. And you're like, what? Because I don't know any company that ever thinks this way, except somebody like Apple, who was really good, right? Is that you have to be pushing on development to build product that customers need and want. And the only group that really knows that long term is looking forward is marketing. Sales is short term. Sales can go to development and say, I need this widget because I can sell NGA. But marketing says, okay, we're going to go into the emergency response industry, and here's the things we need you to build, right? And then we don't just walk away and go, oh my gosh, I hope they build it. You market, you find the clients, you get them in develop, and then you push development, and then you team with the CEO who helps to make that and prioritize it. And I can tell you, development does not want to build stuff. They really don't. And I remember one heated meeting, director's meeting, where Scott, who's the head of development, was like, we should just build tools for academics. That's all he wanted to build. And I'm like, is anybody, care about this? And so, Jack and I would collaborate on ARC News so if you read ARC News articles, those articles used to be what we wanted Scott to build.
Cool.
Right. And so my point is, marketing is not over here just doing digital marketing, sending out social media posts and emails, right? You have to be, that's just a tool. You have to be, you will not be a long-term successful company if you don't have a CMO at the table that knows what your product does intimately and knows your community. Jack got that. Jack knew that. So we were in it for the long term. We went through, when the internet started, search engines, we went through, how we're going to do that, eyeballs, and at the end of the day, there's just first principles. People are still the same, right? There's a couple really good old books that I think are really useful. One is Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. And he also wrote a book about
taking notes.
The tornado or something, where Esri's mentioned. And it kind of, because what it does is it's saying a lot of companies start, but they can't cross the chasm to become the gorilla. And we were on the other side, and he used this as an example of a company that wasn't going to cross the chasm. So I took that as a challenge. I'm like, we're going to cross the chasm, just wait, right? So in that book, though, he talks about going after one industry, then the next, and then and then being successful. Don't spread yourself too thin. And it's exactly what we did. So I just took in marketing used to have all the industry teams, and we built that up from, so we got an industry leader, we created that market, got partners, and made sure the product team was building the right products. Our customers were supported. Then we did the next one, then we did the next one, then we did the next one. By the time I left, I think we had 66 of them. And so yeah, so you have to, so marketing's long-term, it's free. And then, Seth Godin, who's just well-known marketing genius, it's frequency versus reach. You just got to hit people with messaging, and you got to hit them with the right messaging.
Yeah.
Which goes to my next point, which is messaging should never be developed by development or sales. And it shouldn't all be developed by marketing. It's a team effort, right? You have to be sitting in those meetings where you're seeing, feeling, understanding what is happening at the company before you can develop the message. And marketing knows how to take that and put it into a way that will grab people's attention, right? You have to hit people with your messaging, but you have to make sure your messaging's right. Let's say you spend all this money and you finally get people to pay attention to you, and you have the wrong message or the wrong product, right? Well, in most companies, the marketing person doesn't even know what the product does, right? It's like, it's just such a disconnect. And so if there even is a marketing person, sales and marketing everybody's like sales. Well, sales and marketing has a good relationship, but sales is short term. Our job in marketing is to make sure that sales, by the time they're talking to a customer, already knows why your product's better, who you are, who your company, they're going in to now talk about pricing, configuration, what's your budget. They shouldn't be doing your job for you, but sales shouldn't be doing marketing job either, right? So there should be a really good relationship between sales and marketing, because they need to know what markets you're opening up for them maybe a year from now, so they can hire the right people to fill the sales that's going to be generated. So it's this dance, right? But you can't, if you're not invited to the dance, you're missing a huge component of a company's success if you don't have a marketing exec on your team from the very beginning. I mean, I became head of marketing before there was a head of sales.
Right.
Because Jack was in charge of sales. The CEO needs to be doing the main sales at first. If your CEO doesn't like selling, then I don't know what's going on. I mean, right? And
sure.
And so he was invaluable, right? And his strength, he has a lot of strengths, but one of Jack's strengths is he knew the value of marketing more than any other CEO I've ever met, except I've never met Steve Jobs, but yeah.
Just to show that I've been trying to listen.
Okay, sorry, I'm talking a lot. Trying to get everything in.
No, I love the fact that I'm just taking it in. This is great. So just to summarize, if I can, so I've got 6 items down. I've got education, personalities or heroes. For example, I love what you said about even deciding what Roger Tomlinson wore on stage.
Oh my God, yeah. Same with Jack's clothes. I mean, everything is designed.
We need to hear more about that. Number 3 is celebrating users. Number 4 was taking industry by industry and having a leader and focusing on one and winning that industry and then moving to the next. So don't spread yourself too thinly. I like that phrase. Number 5, you said, was messaging and making sure that you're ahead of sales so they don't have to do your job. Yes. And number 6 was the point that it's a dance between sales development and marketing. Am I somehow keeping up with you? Yeah,
and I honestly wouldn't even say sales is part of that dance. And I know that sounds crazy, but you want salespeople on the road selling. They're the end of the spear, I guess. I don't even know if that's the right metaphor, but they're the ones out there closing the deals. They shouldn't be, they're bringing intelligence back from the field for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a phrase that I don't remember who said it, but there's like salespeople have this idea they want this magic brochure. Like if I just had this one brochure or white paper, I could sell $1 billion, right? So and if they're saying that to you, it's mean they're going into the wrong. They're trying to sell into the wrong space. You haven't prepared that space for them yet. But yeah, I do think though messaging's always tricky because every group is trying to create messaging that benefits them, right? So development doesn't want a message out there that says something that's visionary, because they haven't built it yet, and they may not want to build it. They may not, whatever, right? And so you have to push, and marketing tends to be, at least at Esri, is the center of everybody's anger, right? So marketing always gets blamed, right? Sales are down. It must be marketing. The product's not. I used to be told people aren't using the product right, Linda. I'm like, okay, didn't you want them to edit in this editor product? Like, right? So you become the brunt of a lot of that, and you shield the CEO from it, but you have to be able to get into the game. You have to become part. You have to be in that wrestling match, and to do that, you have to know what you're talking about.
Okay, I like that. I was just going to say, I love the visceral imagery here. You use the term dancing, and now it's wrestling.
Now it's wrestling. And I'm not saying it's all that, but develop, just like any group, right? Marketing can get lackadaisical and and write out on their successes, and so can development. So you need development pushing marketing. You need marketing pushing development, right? If you have good salespeople, they're motivated by the sell. Like they're self-motivated in a way. You just got to give them good leads, right? You got to give them good hunting ground. So you have that dance, and then you start mixing in, as technology started to grow out, as you start mixing in IT. So IT was another area and then HR, because you need we rebranded. I was in charge of rebranding Esri, right, from ESRI to. You needed HR as part of that, and to get client staff on board. So then you need. Once we started using, we were the first users of enterprise marketing management, which nowadays, I don't know what they call it, but it's like HubSpot. But it was a primo in those days. It was one of the earliest ones. And so you needed IT support, right? I mean, one of Esri's biggest assets is the marketing database. I mean, we probably have millions of records in there going back for ages, right? And we know where they've worked. I mean, oh my God, it's probably more valuable than the software. And so we needed IT support. So then you start teaming with IT to drive them to modernize, right? We needed a modernized IT stack at Esri in order to do what we wanted to do. And that never happened when I was there. But that also needs to happen. So marketing has to have the marketing CMO wears many hats. And the way I look at it is it's because we're one of the voices of the customers. We're the voices for the potential customers. And then we're the voices for those markets that need our technology but don't know about us yet. So we represent all of those. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Again, I'm just taking some notes.
But again, that's long term, right? If you only think you're going to go after one market and and do some digital marketing and then make all it, that's not long-term growth strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
I appreciate the masterclass. I'm doing my best to keep up. All right, this is great. I was struck by your comments about education. Part of the reason why what you said stuck in my mind is it reminded me of a guy whose first name is Richard. I can't remember his last name, but he founded LEK Consulting. He wrote a book about entrepreneurship called The Star Principle. And basically, a major point is that you want to invest in a business that invents its own niche, because then they're going to be they're going to dominate that niche.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but feel that what you were talking about at the outset for Esri was that there were signs of inventing a niche. For example, writing university curricula, I guess, so that people have the skills to actually use the software or one day work for Esri at all. Yeah. So is that part of what we're looking at here, that there was the first mover advantage, they invented the niche, they therefore dominated it, and the industry more broadly is looking at this behemoth which has that momentum. So there was that observation, but then I've noticed that felt, which I understand you've had some involvement with,
Mhm.
I've seen signs of them having a series of videos on YouTube and blog posts and things like that, which can
Yeah.
be characterized as them educating people about what GIS is and what different types of
Yeah.
spatial analyses are. I've also seen the same under Helen McKenzie, I think, at Cardo,
Yeah.
doing a lot of GIS education too.
Yeah.
And I really love a lot of their content, especially about spatial indexing and things like that. But I'm really seeing this theme of education as a method of public outreach, raising the profile of your particular GIS platform.
Right. Yes, because at the end of the day, so as we started going into the education front, and I wouldn't say in the academic, the research area, that was always a strong suit, right, of Esri, because anyway, we won't talk about like who the first people that bought GIS were, but when we started to sell into utilities, and I ran that industry for a long time, we were selling into like Alabama Power, Centerpoint Energy, and no, they couldn't hire people to use our tech, right? I mean, you buy, it's like, okay, I have a bunch of CAD people, they don't understand GIS, right? So we frantically sort of ran around to get things into like in Huntsville or near. So we would work with our user and say, where do you hire a lot of your tech people from? It's like, oh, from this community college or this school, and then we would work with those schools, right? And that was all in marketing to sort of drive that base of workers, right? That was what was driving it in a lot of ways, because you have a new industry, you got to train people up. And we had training programs that Esri taught, but that wouldn't scale. And you got to go where people are looking for the hires. So yeah, and I think the same thing's true. So what's happening today is the what is GIS is sort of got long in the tooth. It's old, right? And even Esri now launched some new GIS, which is over. Anyway, they just launched something too, and it's like we have to modernize it, right? Because and then you have to get people. There's a whole bunch of people that don't know what GIS is today, and you're not going to have them go look at the science of GIS. They need to understand it from what they need to do with it, which tends to be more modern. It's more like, how can I use this to cite stores, or how can I add this into a workflow that I already have? How do I, it's a different world now, right? People aren't buying, $1 million site licenses. Esri sort of has those. It's trying to go after that long tail, or people that want to combine open source with something, right? How do I do that? And they're not gonna, and you don't want to push your users to learn GIS from Esri if you're a competitor. So
Exactly.
yeah, so you have to start going after that. And on the other side too, teachers don't, teachers are getting hit left and right now with cuts and all that kind of stuff. They can't afford to have to learn enterprise GIS system. They want something that their students, who are all younger, who are used to drag and drop, they're used to Google Docs, they don't want to have to go and learn COM objects and weird stuff that's only useful in GIS. They want to use the tools they're used to. And so it's really freeing up teachers to be able to teach in an easier way.
Right. So yeah, it was just fascinating to hear that, a part of Esri's marketing strategy was literally
Oh
to
my God.
write
Yeah.
the university
Yeah.
curriculum. And I think
The whole ed team was in marketing. I think
yeah,
I had 12 people in my group that were
wow.
just dedicated to education.
It just it suddenly makes it look like,
And
Esri
marketing,
basically is responsible for all of the curriculums around the world, or at
yeah,
least,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But it's not a bad thing, right? Because
That's such a great way to make a market, because then you produce a
yeah,
generation of analysts that just need Esri. They're not going to suddenly go and use MapInfo if they've spent 4 years
right.
studying GIS. To me, it's the ultimate marketing strategy, and I can't help but feel that there's this massive inertia that's been created. And
Yeah.
I feel like, honestly, my career trajectory is explained by this effect as well. I have used MapInfo once or twice. I've used QGIS once or twice, but you just have all these workflows embedded. You've got the muscle memory
Yeah.
from Esri software from the start, and
And you get
it's
proud of the fact that it's hard to use, right? There's all
Sure.
all was there. You guys haven't. We even made little stickers and buttons for you to wear at our user conference. Geo nerd,
Right.
like we celebrated the complexity.
Right.
Right. So that's marketing.
Fascinating.
Okay, if development builds something that's hard to use, you're like, oh, only really smart people can use it. Are you smart? like,
right.
It's all. And I'm not saying it's bad. Marketing's job is to promote what you have, like what is being built, right?
Mm.
The problem is that when marketing kind of stops leading, then you get complacent, and that's why I say GIS is stagnating, because I knew the work and the lift it was to keep this industry moving forward, and that's gone. The air isn't behind this in the sails anymore, so it's just stagnating. And I'm like, okay, how do Esri's not going to do that anymore, right? So who's going to do that? Who's going to drive the industry? And I would say it's not GIS, it's geospatial, right?
Yeah.
Because Esri was really focused on GIS. And so I think one of my things is, there's no reason why raster and vector are separate, right? There is a business reason, a political reason, a whatever reason, but there's not a good reason.
Just to tie off on hopefully a humorous note about marketing.
Yeah.
What on earth did you make poor Roger Tomlinson and Jack Dangerman wear?
No, I didn't. Well, no, but I didn't make him wear any. Well, it's
not
like
wear.
Not wear. No, but Jack has a persona, right? He was one of the brands, right? And Jack, one of the things that he did was get very integrated into academics, and that's for his own personal reasons. But he looks like an academic, right? So he has, he gets the same outfit. They go and get the same. Yet he's not wearing the same outfit every day. He has the same outfit, multiple copies of it.
Oh my God.
And the same glasses. He has the frames. There's they bought a whole bunch of them, so he always has the same frames.
Oh, well.
Right. But I don't think, having said that, he's very comfortable in that. But, Jack's not an academic. He's not. That's not his background. That's not who he is. He's really a fascinating, hilarious, and way different guy than you see on the stage, right? But when you're the CEO, you represent the company, right? And you everything about it needs to be on point. It needs to be on point. And that's why, people that think they want to start a company, they need to understand that you're committing to to your life, to that, if you want it to grow. Look at Steve Jobs, right? Look at any of these CEOs. They became this persona, this brand, and Jack's brilliant at it, right? If you ask anybody what Esri is, a lot of the times you'll see it comes back to describing Jack and describing his passion and what he represents. And Roger, we needed somebody, we needed a starting point. We needed a story to tell about the beginning of GIS that wasn't, oh, GIS is so we can make money, right?
Sure.
And Roger was great. I'm not saying he didn't do the work. I mean, Roger was Roger, whatever. But
did you make him wear a tie or something?
No, well, we did make sure he was, yeah. And I'm not saying he wouldn't have worn a tie, because he is a professory type of guy, but he's an academic, and they all have big egos. You're just different than most people's egos. Okay. So we had to manage all of that. Wow. But it did, but he helped us. People were like, "Oh, you really helped Roger," because we published his book, but he helped us too, right? He led credibility. Yeah. Again, when you're a small company and you're starting, you need those proof points that you're in it for the long haul, and that you're credible, and you have, at least in GIS, you had that scientific foundation for the models you were building. Maidment is one of those guys that did that for us too, right? So when we put out a water flow model, or we put out Krieging, it was like these people put their stamp of scientific approval on it by showing up at our events. Yeah. And there's and great. Thank you. I mean, they were great. Yeah. And because it was good, our technology was good. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, yeah.
The 1.3 billion in revenue that they now generate annually is a testament.
Well, that's what they say.
I see.
Nobody knows the numbers.
Okay, yeah.
Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Anyway, amazing, so Linda.
Thank you. I unplugged myself, so sorry.
All good. Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, really looking forward to the next installment.